Welcome. This is Shawn.
Charlie.
And Thomas.
And you're listening to another exciting episode of
Sparkcast.
I almost was going to say the Sparkcast.
I like the Sparkcast. That actually sounds fancier.
Yeah. So today's episode, we're looking at Season 2, Episode 8. Arise Atlantis? Atlantis Arise? What is it called? Atlantis, comma, arise! Exclamation mark. That's what it's called.
Which is kind of weird because they do make a point in the show to make a distinction between what is this place called? Atlantica versus Atlantis. Like they acknowledge that there's the old legendary Atlantis, and then now this other place is going to be another legend, just like Atlantis.
Just wait till we get to that. Then I'll tell you the story of the four Atlantises throughout the Transformers canon.
This has already so much going for it, this episode. I was actually really excited about it. An episode about Atlantis could not be more timely with current events. Have you guys seen the UFO, like, Pentagon public hearing where they talked about, like, the things that they've seen in the air and coming out?
Well, yeah, they've started to be more open and, like, they're releasing, like, footage and basically just saying, we don't know, you figure it out.
Sorry, you're making me think of Project Blue Book.
That these things, it is Project Blue Book, but
okay,
these things have been emerging from the ocean, like the unmanned technology. It's coming out of the ocean, so I just assume, hey, that must be Atlantis. The Atlanteans are going to take over at some point. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about this whole thing.
Cool. So before we begin, to brief things is the
heroic Autobots are led by Optimus Prime. He's more than meets the eye. He's a robot in disguise.
Japanese differences. I mean, granted, there's Generation 2. It's the 15th episode. Who cares? So in Japan, they renamed Subatlantica to Atlantis, and you can actually hear them saying this. That being said, it's weird that the title is called Atlantis Arise, even though in the US version, it's always called Subatlantica. So
yeah, it is weird, and the Japanese people were like, "This is dumb. It's just going to be Atlantis."
Yeah, one thing that the Japanese I've noticed do a few times to their episodes is add more walla dialogue where it's not needed or where they think it's needed. So when Megatron first blows up the rock behind the Subatlantican's king and his minions, they squeak as they run away when it was completely silent in the US version.
Funny. And
you can tell that in the Japanese version, they still use the U.S. dialogue of the Subatlanticans. Because the Subatlanticans' dialogue is only English tuned up to where you can't understand it, or backwards. I can't remember which one it is. And then they do it again. What's that?
It's sped up audio.
Oh, okay. So you can... Okay, that's right. Because that's how I could tell it was still English, because it was just sped up. And then when all the Subatlanticans are screaming, it's all the Japanese dub added into it. Like, see, when Grimlock is ripping through the city, there's a lot more dialogue of them screaming in horror as they run away from the dinosaur and their city blowing up. And then for the cuts, they cut Megatron and the Decepticons hovering around while Soundwave collects his birds and them diving in the water to investigate the energy. It just cuts to them right as they leave the base going there. But that's only about 10 to 15 seconds. So I couldn't really find out where they cut the other 45 seconds. I actually spent too much time trying to compare them and could not see where they cut other stuff. Anyway.
Talk, excessive time, liberty.
Oh god, I put a note here. Future Shawn, edit this back. They actually cut out the part where Optimus is getting the warning from Bumblebee and that Megatron's going to DC. And then they cut the part of them breaking through the barrier to get to DC. I mean, going under there before they turned on the barrier.
Sarcasm not appreciated.
For the writer, this was written by Douglas Booth, who previously wrote the Ultimate Doom trilogy, along with Roll For It, Fire on the Mountain, Plague of Insecticons, and City of Steel, which we watched recently. Who wants to start with some random stuff they liked and didn't like about this show?
Me, Grimlock, no like you.
The entire show? I don't like Hound. That's what I don't like about this show.
That's a deep point to jump in, Shawn. Like that's a deep swimming pool. You
No,
sure
I
want
think
to
he
start
just
off
means
this
this
way?
episode.
Well, you didn't like, I like how it opens. Soundwave's just like, hey, check this out. And Megatron's like, how dare you disturb me to watch a travel log? I was like, geez, got no patience whatsoever, do you?
Travelogue.
I love that. I love that line. That was the best.
I don't even think as a kid I even knew what a travel log was.
Yeah.
So I want to point out the main thing that bothered me throughout this episode, because it happened several times with weird consistency.
The scale of the robots?
No, that's just the series. That's
King
going
Merc-
back to what we don't like about the show and not this episode.
King Nurgle's name. I can't tell if it's Nurgle or Murgle. I
Nurgle.
think people keep saying something different.
Yeah. It's just the way that they communicate. So they communicate telepathically.
Yes, I
And
have
yet,
the same.
But they move
when
their mouths.
they always move their mouths like they're speaking. But then when they talk to each other, they do the same animation, except they don't move their mouths. Which I
Oh my
don't
God.
understand what is going on there.
They only communicate telepathically to each other, I guess. Ah, now I get it.
Well, no, they communicate telepathically so that everybody else can understand them.
Ah. So, okay.
And then
but under
even though
Soundwave-
there were a couple of scenes where King Nurgle was, I guess, talking to himself, supposedly in his head. Well, you would think it would be in his head, but apparently he's just speaking aloud, but projecting it telepathically so that everybody can hear his inner thoughts.
yeah,
Which
look,
the lack of consistency with that was just confusing me so much.
so they're actually, that's what my question was too, because Soundwave says he communicates telepathically, but we saw him move his lips, and they have those emitting psychic waves, which at first, because you only see it around the king, you think maybe it's his crystal and not really like the minions. But then you see, oh yeah, when they attack the Autobots, they're still speaking to them while they're having those energy waves around their head.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought it was okay, well maybe the king just speaks like that, but then the minions do it as well.
Yeah, and it's consistent. There's always talking and the lines at the same time. So, but it's just
Which
like,
is
why?
weird, because you think with a show like this back in that time where they would be eager to save money on animation wherever they could, and just like, okay, let's just have these lines that we'll just paste everywhere and not actually animate the mouth, but then they actually go and animate the mouth when they don't need to.
Yeah, they had a complete still right there, like no animation whatsoever, just like
Yeah.
a picture of the Sea King, and
But then
just-
they waste this money even though they have a perfect lore reason to not actually do it.
Oh man, that was funny. That was just so hilarious because the Decepticons seemed really impressed by it. Or maybe they're just stupid. Maybe he wasn't speaking to them telepathically, but maybe he was using his mind ray at the same time he was just talking to them.
Yeah.
So I guess this point actually rolls into something else I thought was kind of weird and funny as a viewer, where so I guess when he talks with his lips, but also, well, I guess in this instance he does not talk with his lips, but he's talking telepathically to his minions. Not only does he talk telepathically, I guess the way that you know that he's speaking in the Nurgle type language, or I guess they're not Nurgle language, it's Subatlantican language. It's the sped up audio that we mentioned before, which I thought it was kind of funny and cool that I guess at first I thought it was like scrambled audio. Well, not scrambled. I thought it was just some kind of audio that didn't make sense. But if you listen closely, you realize, they kind of say English words. So I slowed down the video and I'm like, okay, this is just sped up audio. Like he's speaking in just regular English, except it's sped up.
Yeah,
And it's just
could
funny
hear
how
what he was saying.
Starscream points out that like it's scrambled audio or a scrambled message or something like that when it's just plain English.
And he tells Soundwave to encrypt it, not Megatron. And Soundwave's like, all right, guess I'll listen to you. That sounds like a good plan.
I heard it from the start. So for me, it was just hilarious because after the other telepathy thing with the lips moving, like I was already like, this is ridiculous. And then I get to that part and I'm like, oh, he just said, put your weapons down. But then they're like, oh my God, his language is scrambled. We can't understand it.
Yeah,
like,
that's
really?
right. I was like, well, I had to rewind it a couple of times. Like they're acting like it's scrambled. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I just heard English. And I did. So I only made out the put the weapons away. I couldn't figure out what he said after that.
Yeah, it was enough though. I was like, I heard him order weapons down. Like,
yeah.
I was like, really? You guys can't understand that? Come on.
And then one more point that also ties into this again, what I mentioned before, where, well, it was a weird scene, period. So Starscream's outside with Megatron as they go to kind of like attack DC. That we'll talk about that later. But Nurgle goes back in. He's talking about like double crossing them or whatever. Somehow Nurgle's walking back inside his base, but somehow Starscream is able to beat him from being further outside with Megatron, get back into the base, and then manage to hide around the corner before Nurgle makes it back inside. And then Nurgle's just doing his telepathic thing, just spoiling his whole plan by just telepathically broadcasting it out to, I guess, anybody who would have been nearby, which is Starscream in this case. Which I don't get because they already established that there's a difference between the Subatlantican language, which is the sped up audio, and then there's a difference between what they translate to whoever else. But in this instance, he's talking to himself in the translated language so that Starscream can conveniently eavesdrop on him.
Thought totally should have been in Subatlantican and shouldn't have been in English, but
yeah,
go figure.
And I like that one betrayal scene though, where you see the two scenes back to back where they're like, Megatron, why are we not betraying these people? And he's like, they still have a purpose, then we'll betray them. And then you go back to someone else questioning Nurgle, and he's like, why are we doing this? Don't worry, it's not convenient yet to betray him. So they're both just like ready to betray each other when the time is right.
Yeah,
and they're both getting questioned by both of their like second in commands, basically.
Which is funny because I don't think the betrayal happened actually, because Nurgle still seemed like he was going to wait, and he didn't want to shoot Megatron until he was basically forced to just take a shot at both of them. But then he didn't actually, because then Starscream stepped in.
So Starscream did all this meticulous planning and then screws it up at the very end so that Megatron doesn't even know all the work he's done to help him.
Well, Megatron doesn't find out that he's going to get double crossed because like everything just falls to pieces.
Instead, it looks like Starscream is the one that caused them to lose, because then he gets kicked in the shin, loses the gun, and then the gun is shot on Megatron by an Autobot. So it's like, Starscream, it's your fault. And he's like, but I was trying to save you, Megatron. And he's just not having it.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. I didn't even really realize that. Yeah, he basically spent like almost half the episode just like... Well, actually, not even half the episode, the whole episode, because he suspected them from the very beginning.
Yeah. And then he got caught. He gets caught and gets trapped. And then when he comes back, he doesn't get back in time to warn Megatron because he's already fighting Grimlock at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So I was going to mention something quickly because this is the very beginning. I like how the scale, did you notice that Bumblebee is very small wrapped around Grimlock's foot when they're playing football?
Oh, yeah.
And the thing,
football game.
And this football game would be so dangerous as a human to play against large metal robots. I mean, Grimlock almost snaps his jaws at Spike. Like,
yeah,
killed him.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, okay, what if Spike kept the ball? What were you going to actually do to him, Grimlock?
And then only Hound complains about it. He's like, well, it's so dangerous playing football with
The
Dinobots.
Dinobots.
I'd rather be doing something else, like chasing down the Decepticons.
Well, I mean, Spike, that football suit he had on made him look massive, actually. It seemed out of place. I thought it was like, okay, is this a mechanical suit? But then as I looked closely, it was just a regular football equipment. But
with his name on
Yeah,
the
he did
back.
look pretty
with-
hardy.
Yeah.
On the front, his name was on the front, and there was an S on the back, I guess.
Yeah,
for
you could
Spike.
see where his future son will get his father's fashion sense and just put a giant D on his chest for his outfit he wears every episode.
No football jersey looks like that. I think I got that a little wrong.
Oh, and speaking of scale, the arc is in the background, so you can see how large the football field is. This is not a human-sized football field. It is a football field on the same scale to fit Transformers. Can you imagine how huge that football field is?
Not even just the regular Transformers, the Dinobots.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know
But
how.
the football that they had was massive.
How
Because
does
the scale changed.
What
Because
was
Spike
that?
had it, he threw it, but then when they had the deflated one in the base, it was massive.
Yeah, that's true. I thought it was funny when Hound catches the football as a Jeep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
That's the best. Those are the best kind of Transformers like faux pas that I love. It just was so silly. He just throws it onto the windshield and it just sticks there. It's like, I got it. And then he goes like, he runs. He's a Jeep. He can drive wherever he wants to. But for some reason, he drives right into Slug, the Triceratops' face with the ball.
Yeah, it gets crushed.
Oh man, that was just silly.
Yeah. So I do want to mention something that was confusing. It's not really an animation error, more like planning and directing. I'm like, when did Spike goes on this mission to go underwater, right? With Bumblebee. With Optimus's permission, of course. And
Oh, yeah.
when did Spike change into his regular clothes? And how did Bumblebee empty the water from his body so that when they got to land, so what did they do first? Did they first drive to Spike's house so he could get a change of clothes to get into his aqua
my
tub?
Oh God.
And then in the
Jesus.
car, then it's just open the door. Does he just let the water in while let Spike change and then lets the water in because he's automatically in his trunk and thing that won't actually let him breathe because he's got that thing
Yes.
that collects water, but he has a thing on the back of his
Right.
thing for actual breathing. So it doesn't
So-
make sense. Artistic wise.
There were multiple scenes where I don't know. They must have had a lot of material. They just made the cuts where they needed to make them. There
Mhm.
are multiple scenes where, like the Starscream thing, where he's outside, but then he's all of a sudden inside before the other guy. There are multiple scenes in this episode where the timing of placement of characters does not make sense at all. Like it's contrary to a previous scene. But with Spike, which is funny because all of a sudden he's all covered up in the football suit, but then all of a sudden he's bearing it all. He's just in a Speedo all of a sudden with his scuba equipment. But then yes, he has on, I guess it's called a regulator that they put in their mouth so you can breathe underwater or whatever.
Yeah.
You wear that, you can't really speak clearly. But yeah, he's just speaking like regular English underwater. Like
Yeah. And then
there's no water effect at all.
And when they leave the water, he just immediately gets out of the car with his regular clothes. I'm like, how'd you get dry? And it's like you had to open the door to get everything in. That means even your change of clothes would have been wet.
And then it happens again at the end of the episode because he's naked again at the end of the episode.
The thing is, I think Spike just has an all-over suit with the Speedo incorporated. It's just like a bodysuit that he slips on over himself, and
Oh my goodness!
it's just printed with like
I can't
his
imagine
own body.
Does
I
it
can't
have his
imagine
name on the
being-
back of that too?
I can't imagine being a transformer and a human is just like, I'm going to take off all my clothes and change into new ones while I'm inside you. And you'd be like, what? No, that sounds very disturbing. Please
Oh
get
my
out of
God.
my car.
Get out of my compartment. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Just cheeks all over those seats.
So, one thing that's kind of funny is Megatron and the Subatlanticans are working together, so they power the base. They give them basically energon cubes or help them make the base even more powerful. This is Subatlanticans. Now it travels, and they don't know where it's going, so Bumblebee pulls out his giant grid laser-based GPS system. It's just this giant screen in front of him that's a laser grid, and he's like, oh, they're going to DC!
I didn't even know, I didn't realize he was using something. I just thought he looked out to sea, and he was like, oh my god, they must be going to DC from the direction they're going.
Yeah, he used some kind of GPS laser grid thing.
I like the locale, like how we can look at it and be like, okay, what is wrong here? Because we live in this area. We know what this is supposed to be like. And I started looking.
There was one glaring
thing
as a person native to the area.
Yeah.
What was that one?
So I thought it was kind of interesting that they were going to go to DC, and then not only was it DC, I guess they were also in Maryland because they're driving through to get to DC. But as the Autobots were on the highway, they passed a sign that basically, on the highway you see a sign that says the city is the different cities.
I saw that one. I paused to see that one sign that kept flying by that you couldn't read fast enough. And
there was an arrow pointing up that said next to it said Baltimore.
Yep.
There was an arrow pointing to the left next to it said DC. Which, okay, depending on where you are in Maryland, that would be normal. But there was an arrow pointing to the right that said New York.
New York.
No.
Impossible.
No.
Well, maybe you're in New Jersey, right?
I gotta say,
But Baltimore would never be above New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I was impressed though, because I'm like, maybe someone from Japan actually, came to this area and they remember the cities at least that were on the signs, because that's what you normally would see. But that was totally crazy. It should have been, New York at the top, north, Baltimore north, DC south, or something.
So sorry, go ahead.
And then the Chesapeake Bay sign was,
which makes sense because they're dealing with the Atlantic Ocean, so that
both Chesapeake Bay signs, right?
Oh no, I only saw one of them.
So the first one says Chesapeake with a P, Chesapeake Bay exit, and the next one says Chesapeake, but under it says Bay exit. So instead of a P, it's now F, so it's Chesapeake Bay.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I saw that.
That's awesome. I wish I'd seen that. I gotta go back and look now.
And when you get to DC, you guys know what DC's like, right? With the 20-lane highways throughout buildings you have to, I guess every building has to be 20 lanes apart from each other.
Oh God, I wish.
I like how they were like, we're almost there, and they're like in the mixing bowl. There's like all these different roads of like, you guys are gonna be there a while.
And I don't know where they landed. Like Megatron lands in front of the White House or the Capitol. I think he lands in front of the White House because he shoots the
White House.
Yeah, and then I thought he was going to be like, "We're here now. Let's take over their central government." But instead, it's like, "Well, we're here now, and now we're just going to run into the city, even though the seat of power is right behind us."
So confused by what they were doing, because it looked like, okay, they busted into the White House courtyard, and then meanwhile, though, they set up some kind of dome. What was that dome called? Like a invincibility dome or something?
Oh yeah, it's just like
they set that thing up in like Alexandria somewhere. It was like somewhere totally different. I was like, what? That happened like a second later. They weren't even anywhere near the White House anymore. So yeah, I have no idea what the plan was there. When they made the like force field, I don't know what they had closed. They had the Washington Monument closed in, and then I don't know what else. It was just so arbitrary.
Yeah, so I actually wrote down the landmarks that appeared in DC, other than, of course, the 495. There's the White House. There's the Washington Monument. And I was like, was there a ring of flags around this in the 80s? Because it's not there now. But I'm wondering if that's how it looked like in the 80s. Like just
I wonder if I think they do that sometimes. I don't know if they don't do that all the time, but I think sometimes they do put up all the flags.
And then there's the Lincoln Memorial and the U.S. Capitol building.
Okay, I didn't catch the U.S. Capitol building.
I think they confused the U.S. Capitol with the White House. I did see that where they are in relation to each other is not the same.
So I posted a still in our general chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Of as the Autobots were en route to DC to kind of like stop the
Bumblebee. You're driving over the line.
But this shot was very. They must have rushed this because Bumblebee and Hound are pictured, and what we're looking at, they're in their vehicle mode, and they are like completely like deformed. Bumblebee has like a flat back completely almost. And in Hound, I don't know what's going on with Hound. He's supposed to be a Jeep, but this isn't a Jeep at all. It's all like completely hardtop.
And it's colored differently.
And there's a ledge. He's got like some kind of weird like ledge step on the side of him.
Yeah.
I think
it's just like all
honestly.
It's called a rush job.
They had Hound, but then they had what is the guy's name that has the? It's like Hound was there, and then the guy who has the
Huffer was
Hummer.
there.
The Hummer. Is that Braun? Which guy is that?
Yeah, Braun is there.
Yeah,
I was actually wrote Thomas Braun is back because I know you don't like him.
But they're both green and they look Jeep-like. So I think sometimes it was him, and sometimes it was.
Well, he's green and yellow, I think. Braun. So.
It doesn't. It usually just shows it green though. It doesn't have like much detail or anything. But one's a Hummer and one's a Jeep, and I think.
Okay, I think we're looking at Braun. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was getting really mixed up too. So I'm like, what the?
Well, I thought doesn't
similar.
Well, who always has the gas can on their back? that's how.
Well, Braun has a tire on top, and this has a tire on top. So I think this is Braun.
Yeah, but why would they use two characters that look too much the same in the same episode?
Well, they didn't have to look the same if they made Bumblebee completely round instead of like a square on the back.
Well, also they would animate based on the max number of people they could afford each episode, and so if this person voices this character, we'll make sure to also draw the other character in there that he voices in case he has lines of dialogue.
Oh, that would make sense, I guess.
Because they would always record together, but I think it maxed out at like 6 actors per episode or something like that. It might have been 7 or even 8, but I'd have to look back into that again. So I wanted 2 things. One that I'm just confused about, and another that I thought was hilarious. So eventually Optimus is like, oh, we're defeated. We need the Dinobots who we were playing football with earlier. And Grimlock's just like, ugh. He's like really pompous and annoying. Anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. I was like, did he not learn his lesson in the prior episodes where he almost betrayed them to Megatron and found out what a dick he was when the world almost exploded or something? So anyway, the funny thing is they're like, smash the force field, and then it just zooms in to Stegosaurus's face, and he's just so happy to cause destruction. His face is like the biggest grin and dumbfounded eye look, and he's like, yes, I'm so happy, and then just starts whacking the crap out of the shield.
Up with those Dinobots. Like, one thing I noticed about this whole episode is the Dinobots and the Transformers were just going back and forth like crazy. Like, they were really pissed at each other, though they were helping each other out. But it's like, I don't know if it all spawned from the football game, but they were all taking jabs at each other.
They weren't helping each other out.
Do you want to know why, Charlie?
Why?
They're eventually going to do a 2-parter called Desertion of the Dinobots, and they wanted to plant the seeds early of the Dinobots not liking working with the Autobots.
Yeah, the
for
Dinobots
season 2
honestly seem like they're somewhere between Autobots and Decepticons. They love destruction. They just want to go.
But they're not
mess
bad.
Something up. But they're not.
Yeah.
They're just dumb cavemen, I guess. Transformers are a little bit insulting to them. Like, there's one point where Optimus Prime is saying to them to like, yeah, go out and act prehistoric. I'm like, dude, what was that supposed to mean?
Yeah, I think that's to me, that's the main issue, is that the Dinobots are extremely dumb. But the Autobots just they don't care. They just like, you are dumb, and they'll tell them to their face and like treat them like crap because they are so dumb, which is like, okay, don't make it worse because they're so dumb. You need to, handle them a little bit better than you are.
I think
The
Optimus
Autobots are
is the only
jerks
one.
to them.
Optimus might be the only one who treats them like, correctly, I guess.
No, he treats them like crap.
No, I thought he was.
He makes jokes like about how they suck, like, and they're better. Like,
What?
he did that all throughout this episode.
Oh god,
Like,
I just not caught that.
Thanks for finally showing up. And
which
then,
they don't suck.
yeah,
And the Dinobots in this episode are great. I like the Dinobots, and this episode is continuing to prove that they are the best. Because like Shawn was saying, they showed up and they just like, you thought that they would have a harder time. Like, I was like, oh, why would they show up? What are they going to do to get through the shield? Like, they're dumb. Like, how are they going to get through? They just beat the hell out of it and break through without any, like, hesitancy. And, like, nothing holds them back. And then they come in and, like, Grimlock is walking down Megatron. Megatron's shooting his cannon straight at him, and Grimlock just doesn't flinch. He picks him up and throws him across the street. And, like... yeah, the Dinobots, man, they are really just, they're just too powerful.
And then he picks up Optimus and he's like, looks like you needed our help again, Optimus.
Oh yeah, like the pompous stuff you were talking about. Yeah, they are getting very arrogant with how easily they can just beat up everybody.
And then earlier, like, Optimus is on the ground. He's like, yeah, thanks for showing up, Grimlock, finally. And then Grimlock's like, well, I'm just here to pull your diodes out of the fire again.
Oh yeah, yeah, he did say that.
But yeah, they were going back and forth like that the whole time in this episode, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. So this is kind of funny. I imagine this conversation happening to Bumblebee and Spike. He's like, "All right, Spike, I gotta transform and start fighting Decepticons. Jump out of the car." I was like, what? He's like, do it now or you'll get crushed to death. Ah, jump. Because there's a scene where he literally jumps and tumbles.
It seemed like it was the idea that Spike came up with. Because, like, Spike's like, okay, now do it, Bumblebee. And I'm like, Spike, why are you doing something so dangerous? There's no need for you to jump out of him like that. Just stay over here and let them do their thing.
Have you ever seen Clerks, the TV show?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, there's a parody segment at the end of one of the episodes
of Transformers.
Yeah, because the end of the episode, the last 2 or 3 minutes, makes fun of like a last-minute job to finish the episode because they lost the original footage, so they had to stitch something together really fast. So it's just all these, stereotypes. But one of them is the characters getting into a Transformer and driving to the event. And then the Transformer transforms while the people are inside of it, and you just hear squish, and you see all the windows inside go red, and just stays red the rest of the time. The Transformer's on screen.
I mean, that's exactly what would happen. I mean, they separate in weird spots. They twist at the torso, like anywhere in that passenger compartment is getting destroyed.
So I remember when I first saw that, I thought it was the most hilarious thing. But yeah, back to something good though. The art was really good in this episode at the end. There's like shading on everybody in the final battle of the city. Like everybody's just shaded like really like really well, and it looks just really good.
Notice
especially the one with Optimus standing up and there's shading and light reflecting off of him while the whole place explodes around him. I was like, geez, the art really picked up here from the DC fight.
The story didn't have much to offer at the end. It was kind of like, yeah, but I do remember it being visually pleasant. Like it was that was the only good part, but
the ending is funny. I almost imagine, how they're all floating after, because God, there's so much happening in this episode, back and forth, like fight under the water, fight over here under the water, now with Autobots, Decepticons, Atlanticans, and Decepticons. And then it's like fight in DC, then more fights in DC. betrayal over here, Dinobots in DC. Now we're going back to the base and everybody's fighting at the base. And then it's like, then everything is exploding while we're fighting at the base. But I just imagine at the end while everybody's swimming, there goes Subatlantica. Yeah, and all those people are now homeless or dead. Ha ha ha, cut to credits. It's like, that wasn't just a base, that was their home. Like all the other men, women, and children are now dead or homeless.
Wait a minute, but were there any other real Subatlanticans besides the cronies we saw in The King? I'm like, I mean, as a whole city, but you don't get to see anybody. They're not there.
They're running away in terror at the end of the episode because, the Grimlock's coming in and destroying everything.
It's just like when they showed DC, there's one scene with people, and that was when they kind of busted into the courtyard of the White House. There was a lady with a red hat and blue necklace, and she looked horrified. And there was like 3 businessmen and 1 sailor who were like, "Oh my god!" And that was it. Those were the only people we saw the whole time. Like,
oh, wow,
the whole city was pretty much deserted, except for a few cars driving in circles because they were confused by the Transformers and
is that right when they
destruction?
were the humans there when they landed in DC and that was it? Like in the Capitol?
That's the only time you see them.
Yes, so they established the humans then, and then hope that you just think they're there in the background the rest of the time. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and basically you don't get to see anybody run. You don't see any carnage or destruction. There's no children that are screaming. Ah! No, but yeah, you just have to imagine all that.
Hey, broadcast standards and practice would not allow a kid to be screaming in terror, okay? Because this is fun, action, adventure, family stuff.
Which is why, at the end of the episode, Optimus basically says, don't think too hard about the King killing all these people and self-destructing the base. They'll show up again. So he basically implies, you don't have to worry that they're dead. They're all alive. They'll be back.
It's a cartoon. No one dies.
So, Shawn, I want you to kind of explain something to me. Was this just a one-off thing, just some one-off nonsense that they just spouted in this episode, or is this some ongoing, like, Transformers lore where, Nurgle makes this ray gun that basically immobilizes Transformers. So he uses it on Ratchet, who was captured, and it's effective. Like, it's got him, like, knocked out. He's just lying, like, flat in the ground. Can't move at all.
Mm-hmm.
Starscream comes in. He uses it on Starscream. Starscream's able to move a little bit, but eventually succumbs. But he can still kind of move around a little bit.
Yeah.
So Nurgle mentions that, maybe it doesn't work as well on Decepticons as it does with Autobots, which to me basically implies not only are they Transformers, there's some anatomical differences between an Autobot and a Decepticon, which I find hard to believe.
Maybe it's genetic. Decepticons are genetic. Like, remember when the Insecticons left and they're like, oh man, they're
not genetic. They can change sides, and they changed their emblem.
I'm making a joke because in a past episode, they're like, the Insecticons will just get back with Megatron again because of their whatever robotic genetics,
Oh my God, that's right.
Next thing we know, we'll be measuring their skulls and, trying to figure out who's going to grow up to be a Decepticon and then toss them in the flame pits if they are.
Tree that was marked with the Decepticon logo. Unfortunately, the logo was the wrong color in that episode, which made me think that there was some kind of in-between race between the Decepticons and the Autobots, but they were really just Decepticons. The Insecticons are naturally Decepticons, and I guess they belong to the same heritage of robots. So.
All right, so I will chalk that up to just random nonsense for this episode that they decided to throw in.
I would be angry if they are not genetically different. If they are mechanically different than Autobots. That the vulnerabilities are different. I'd be upset. Bumblebee and Spike infiltrate the underwater city from just going underneath it and just swimming up into a pool.
Yeah.
How many times has that happened in like any type of movie?
Yeah.
About an underwater anything.
Yeah. It seemed like it was like the main thruster for that entire city because they were able to lift the city up out of the water and like propel it. It seemed like they were going up into where like the turbine basically would be stored. I was like, I would never swim under there.
Yeah. So there's one thing that was really hilarious when Megatron first gives them the energon cubes to power the ship. You see a conveyor.
Yeah.
Every few seconds, it shoots up energy, and then the energon cube just collects it. But the energon cube is going over a conveyor belt. Why is the conveyor belt not getting destroyed by all the energy?
Special, what do you call that material? It's Kevlar, Kevlar and titanium and
it's cooled down by the water.
Yeah. Obsidian water cooled.
It's got a mirror finish. It reflects energy back.
Now you guys are starting to sound like me, where I just make up BS excuses as to why this can exist.
Oh my god!
This is heavy duty Decepticon equipment. You know, they know what they're making.
Do you guys have any more stuff you like or didn't like about the episode before we go to animation errors?
I think I have one last point, which this is going to be, not only is this what I thought was kind of weird and really what's wrong with this episode, this is also going to go to what's wrong with the show. The Subatlanticans are approached by the Decepticons and they don't do anything. The Decepticons kind of come up to them and the Subatlanticans are just kind of like wondering like, okay, why are these people here? Are they going to do us harm like other people do? And then the Decepticons fire. So then, well, they don't fire. They prepare to fire, but then the Subatlanticans beat them first and fire back. So they criticize them.
First. He flies at them. Go ahead.
Say it again?
Starscream flies at them first, because that's in my stupid moments.
Well, yeah, so they shoot him. So they shoot him because he's getting ready to attack them first. The Decepticons are getting ready to attack first. But the Subatlanticans like fire to stop them. In like self-defense, but they were basically criticizing the Decepticons, saying that like, okay, you are just like all the other land dwellers in that you always cause us harm. You come here and you cause trouble. But then later on, they criticize them for attacking first. But then as soon as the Autobots show up, they immediately fire upon them. I'm like, okay. How did you all of a sudden just become so bloodthirsty? Like you're being hypocritical, saying that like all these other people are coming and causing trouble and shooting at you, but then you meet somebody new and you just immediately shoot upon them.
Yeah,
I think that just like, yep, every one of these people, every species, basically are just bloodthirsty. From the humans in the first episode that attacked the Autobots with wrenches and tools, to Hound, to the Decepticons, and now these Subatlanticans.
And then they get so evil, they're like, yeah, we'll help you take over the city of power in America with our giant ship.
Yeah, they wanted to enslave the whole world. I'm like, man, who hurt you?
Majorly disappointed. I thought they were going to turn around that king, but yeah, just... I thought he had some good in him at the start, but yeah. Go figure. It was all gone with the Decepticons.
But yeah, he said he wanted to enslave the world and he would blow up his entire people.
Now that didn't make any sense to me at all.
I didn't understand why he was doing that.
Yeah, like, well, nobody should ever take us over, so I'm just going to blow us up so there's nothing left, including myself.
He basically implied he would rather commit suicide or self-genocide than have somebody else wipe them out first.
That just made no sense. God.
Yeah, that was some weird stuff right there.
Animation errors. I think Thomas already mentioned this. Starscream doesn't fly to DC, but then is there for I don't think he's there for the first battle, but is at least there for the landing or something. Or no, and then he's somehow back at Subatlantica to sneak around.
I guess, what is it? Subatlantica flies to DC. I guess they're at the water. Megatron and some of the other Decepticons leave. But then, yeah, Starscream is back inside somehow. But, I mean, I guess if he's right there at the water, I mean, he's a flyer. He could probably get to the battle pretty quickly.
Because I don't think he actually lands with everybody at DC.
He
but
doesn't.
Then after But then after he's struck by the gun, suddenly he's able to get back to DC quickly. Oh yeah, because the Dinobots blew up the barrier so he could get into DC now.
Okay, yeah, that's right. He was hit with the ray, so he shouldn't be able to do anything. And he's disabled. He can move slowly, but all of a sudden he can just fly and fly all the way to DC and get in a fight. Because the gun isn't destroyed until after he does all his stuff. So they just completely skipped over that. Or
And
maybe it's that maybe it's the Decepticon anatomy. Maybe the ray wears off.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. How did he get back? We never see him getting healed.
Yeah.
Or anything like
they
that.
They completely just skipped over that.
Yeah. For other animation errors, when Wheeljack is trying to stop Nergal from blowing up the city, as soon as he stops, all the details on Wheeljack's legs just vanish, and he has just outlines around his foot, and that's it. It's like all the extra details that usually are on his foot and knees and thighs all just completely vanish, as if they had just done the in-betweens and then forgot to add the details for that scene.
Another spot too where they just forgot the outlines were just wiped out for some reason, like somebody erased them.
Wait, where was this? Is the different one?
I don't know. It was probably in a different place. I have to look for it. It was weird because it just was a place where it just looked like crap. It looked like, okay, what happened here? Where are all the lines? I could see what the shapes are of the characters, but it started to come together, after a second. It just kind of broke apart for a while.
Another thing was funny is in the beginning when they go, it's an underwater city, it cuts to the Decepticon base instead of actual Subatlantica before going back to them under the water and then like staring at what you think is their ship they just left out of before actually showing the city.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I noticed that, and I'm not a Transformers expert with the imagery, and there's so many errors and stuff always changes visually, so I just get confused sometimes. When I saw that, I was like, that's the Decepticon base, but then it was quick. So then they actually show a little bit more of the actual Atlantica, and I'm like, okay, maybe I just didn't see. Maybe it was just a bad angle, but yeah, that did just look like the Decepticon ship, which is also underwater, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was weird.
And I already mentioned previously the Chesapeake and Chesapeake lane, and DC somehow having, like, I looked at the lines. There was almost 20 lanes.
20 lanes.
Buildings, they just didn't want to do anymore. It's like, this is so hilarious. Before they turn on this shield, the sky is actually pink in a little area because they accidentally used a frame of animation earlier as they were flying into the dome before they turn it on, and actually used the wrong background first from after they turned it on, but used it before. So that stood out to me when I first watched it. I was like, why is the sky so pink right here? And then they turned the force field on. I'm like, oh, okay.
I didn't get that one.
Did you guys have any more? Charlie, Thomas?
No.
I can't think of any besides the mouth moving with the telepathy. I mean, it looked like there were words there. It was definitely meant to have word speaking, but they could have just been moving arbitrarily.
The lack of consistency between the telepathy communication.
Yeah.
Whether they're using lips or the sped up audio or nothing.
Yeah. Are they talking or using telepathy? Because they're doing both. They're using their little beam coming out of their heads, and they're moving their mouths at the same time. Reverse ventriloquism.
For retcons, in a future episode of season 2, we're going to encounter mermaids.
Yay!
And in the future Japanese shows, the first one, Headmasters, has an abandoned continent lost to the sea called Lumeria, which the Decepticons use as a secret base. And then in the second show, Super God Master Force, one of the pretender Decepticons is actually sealed inside Atlantis itself and breaks free in the first episode. And in the third show, Victory, we'll see an abandoned Atlantis that somehow still has energy in it that the Decepticons want to steal from. So, 4 Atlantises, only one with people still living in it. And that's not counting the manga, which I think also has an Atlantis. I'm not sure. I didn't feel like reading all that just to look for it.
Least look the same, or are these all 4 distinctive Atlantises that look different?
Oh yeah, they're all 4 completely different shows, and they're all supposed to be completely different places. Though 2 of them are actually Atlantis. The Master Force and Victory both actually are supposed to be Atlantis. Whereas Headmasters, it's Lumeria, which is totally not Atlantis, right? It's just another continent that was lost to the sea.
I think it's okay that this is called Atlantica in this episode. I'm pretty sure we're going to encounter another underwater something. It's best if they name them differently.
Hey, boys, we're gonna be movie stars!
So, did anybody think there was a main character in this episode?
Yes.
I only remember Spike and Optimus from the Autobot side, and sometimes Bumblebee and Wheeljack, but it focuses so much on the Decepticons and random Autobots and Subatlantica drama.
The main character in this episode was Spike Speedo.
Oh my god.
Hey!
I actually wrote Spike is everywhere, but I don't think he did a single thing in the episode.
Yeah, not really. I think they're trying to Bumblebee was trying to be the main character, and he has a little bit of bravado in this where he tries to be a hero. Like he does a couple of tackles, and I think
who saves Wheeljack? Is it Bumblebee or Spike who helps save Wheeljack or Ratchet when he's paralyzed?
It was Bumblebee. Bumblebee and Spike were together.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Spike did anything, or was he just there along for the ride again?
Well, Bumblebee tackled Starscream, I think, and then Spike actually helped Wheeljack get himself together, with his mechanical skills.
Okay.
Right.
I was thinking that. I was like, yes, Spike finally did something. He's not useless.
But Bumblebee his attacks were so boring. He did 2 different tackles at 2 different times.
Mm-hmm.
And now I was like, now I see why the football game was at the beginning and why that was significant. It was just that taught him it taught Bumblebee how to be brave and attack, by tackling.
Just amazing writing. Just went right over our heads.
You see some more there than I did.
Because he goes right for the legs. He does a leg tackle thing on each. I don't know what that's called in football, but it just looked like, okay, he's doing football tackle.
So I actually wrote that the main character was possibly Starscream. Because it focuses on him trying to prove to Megatron the entire episode that the Subatlanticans cannot be trusted, even though Megatron doesn't care because he already plans to betray them in the future anyway. And basically, this episode could be called Starscream's failure, because it's all this build-up to him just finally fumbling through and failing when he finally gets the chance to prove himself. So that's
Megatron
why I think
calls him a dribbling dirt bucket.
So I feel like Starscream is the main character on this one. It would be his second main character, probably episode. But I don't know if King
Nurgle would probably be.
Oh yeah,
that. Ratchet was on his way to being the main character until he basically got knocked out for a quarter of it.
I don't even remember him being there that much.
Well, was it Ratchet? Or no, not Ratchet. What? Yeah. Was it? No, Wheeljack.
Wheeljack, okay. And then, Starscream, Nurgle. Does Megatron have a lot in here, or is he just, because he's a leader, he's always doing stuff? It is kind of
he was doing stuff. He's basically leading the effort to power up the base and the charge or the attack on DC.
He had some good one-liners. There's a part where he took Lincoln off of his memorial seat, and then he used it as his throne. And he's like, "This throne was made for me." But
I didn't realize that those were 2 separate pieces.
Yeah.
I didn't either, but wow, he sure did set Lincoln down gently. It wasn't like he threw him or anything. He's just like, all right, out of my way.
Respects history.
Yeah. I don't think broadcast of the Lincoln Monument. They actually reused that, I think, in All Hail Megatron. I think he actually sits on there again during that comic storyline when he takes over the USA and most of the planet because the Autobots aren't there. So what do you think? Starscream and Nigel, is that the consensus, or some of Megatron too?
I was trying to have a few lines in there telling people not to destroy history, while they're shooting at things. But yeah, I don't know. Did this really focus on anybody? Everybody was just all over the place. Just It was so yeah, I would definitely go with maybe King Nurgle just because we saw so much of him.
Yeah. All right, it's got to be at least 2 to approve it, Thomas.
Yeah, Nurgle.
So Nurgle, the character that shows up just once, is the main character of this episode.
It's not Grimlock? All the he was talking the whole time.
He only shows up at the end as a dot. Well, no, he's not a Deus Ex Machina because they built him up in the beginning when he was playing football. He didn't just come up out of nowhere in Act 3.
Why does he keep coming back to that football game? Like, both of you are saying that, like, this football scene was integral to the plot of this episode.
Oh, it was. All the one-liners just referred back to that football game.
Well,
so.
We'll just wait till they play basketball, and we'll see if it's just as integral to the plot when that happens.
Oh, God, that's awful. I bet they could. That's going to happen, isn't it? Oh, God. Dinobots versus Autobots. Whose side are you on?
Autobot side.
I'm with the Dinobots.
I'm on the side, whichever side has courage.
Megatron's energy. So technically the plot for Megatron was he wants to steal Subatlantica's energy for himself, but not before he gives them but the technology to actually mine the energy themselves to use for their city, so that he can then conquer the Earth with them first. And I guess once all of Earth is conquered, then you can just take all the energy you want. So, or at least starting with America. And you know what? The energy is still there at the end. The Subatlantican city was blown up while it was trying to flee DC. So that energy pit is still out there. Megatron could just go over there all the time and get extra energy for himself. Especially now that there's a city not there protecting it.
So I think he probably wouldn't be interested in that for the same reason why he didn't immediately turn on the Subatlanticans. He was basically using them for free labor. Like, he was going to use them to basically take over the world because there were so many more of them than the Decepticons. So he was like, okay, I'll let you do most of the work, and then I'll take over. So
I mean, they're both thinking the same thing. Like, the Decepticons will take over DC, and then we'll just come and knock the Decepticons out of the way and take over the world from DC. Yeah, go figure. Great plan, guys. Great plan.
Yeah. And then I like how Nurgle's plan was like, well, we'll betray them after we invent some technology to betray them with.
I do what I want when I want!
Starscream's blunders and other stupid moments. The first thing I have is, how did Spike and Bumblebee not warn Optimus in time? They follow Nurgle into the city. He walks in and they follow behind him to get into the city. It cuts to him about to shoot Optimus, but Bumblebee is now transforming and driving through the city as if he has to go really, really far away when they were just right behind the guy. Anyway. And now it's time for Starscream's Stupid Moments, a 4-part series.
4-part series? What?
Okay, part 1. Like, when the Decepticons first see Subatlantica, Starscream goes, "A city! Fly right at it!" Or gets shot. Doesn't even have a plan. Part 2. Soundwave is like, his mental power is great. And Starscream is, but not as great as my firepower. And is immediately hit by a human-sized gun from one of the King's troops and falls over. Defeated by a human-type weapon. Part 3. Soundwave's like, Autobot detective, so Starscream says, and quickly eliminated, and immediately gets a tri-spear chucked at him, and he crashes. So the opposite of what he stated would happen. I even, as soon as he said that line, I wrote, Shawn waits for something bad to happen to Starscream, and then it happened right after I finished writing that sentence. Part 4. Starscream knows the King of Subatlantica will betray them, sees the immobilizing ray on Wheeljack, and simply demands the King surrender the weapon while he's holding it. And it just promptly gets shot and gets immobilized.
Oh my god.
All that subplot and build up for nothing. You had it. You had the information. And instead you're like, that guy has the gun that could injure me. Guess I'll confront him while he's holding it. Oh, that's it. That's my terrible stuff.
You missed the prequel. There was
That's enough. That's enough.
No,
Charlie.
no. The first thing that happened was the most classic stupid Starscream to happen at the beginning of the story. Starscream in jet formation runs right into some kind of force field surrounding the landing city, and then Megatron yells at him that rushing ahead blindly is for dogs.
that was my first one. I just forgot exactly how it happened. So yeah, thanks for expanding on that.
But that was funny. Did you talk about the one with the where he they were talking about how King Nurgle was talking telepathically and his mental power must be obviously so great. That's what Soundwave was saying. Starscream steps up and he's like, not as great as my firepower or something. And he shoots a shot that ricochets back and just knocks him down on the ground.
Charlie, are you doing this on purpose? You're just trying to make me upset. We got to double back and reiterate these points.
No, I remember Starscream pulled his gun and then the human fired at him before Starscream could even fire.
Right, yeah. He shot him before, yeah.
Yeah, because Starscream was busy blabbing instead of taking action. All right, sorry, Thomas. I know that was painful for you.
Next segment.
No more Starscream. What about other stupid moments?
That's if you guys have any other stupid moments out there that you just have to get off your chest.
This segment is a stupid moment.
Okay.
I'm looking here at your notes. I would want to know if the Subatlanticans do appear again.
No, they never do. They're gone. Nobody cared about them.
They just replace them with another Atlantis.
So for our character spotlight, because we don't have any more characters for season 1, and season 2 characters have not started showing up yet, I was going to show you guys this awesome commercial for two things: the Tycho Transformer Racing set and the Tycho Transformer Train and Battle set. Are these awesome toys that you would want as a child? If you guys want to watch the first one, the electronic racing set commercial.
Matron the Autobot on the alert for Freezon, the Decepticons.
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
Up ahead, is that the enemy in disguise? If it is, two can play this game. And the chase is on between Natron and Freezog in one form or another.
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
In Transformers Racing. Now, turn off the lights and your Transformers race into a whole new universe of Nightglow. Transformers Electric Racing by Tycho, of course.
Jeez, this is terrible.
I don't understand why you would want the Transformers to stand up while racing.
Oh, yeah. It feels like they would fall over.
Yeah.
And, that's not very aerodynamic to just have this giant plank on top of your car.
But it's funny is I had that guy squishing his thing in his hand. I was like, wait, I had that because I had a Tycho Racing set. It wasn't Transformers, But I had
Well,
this
yeah,
one.
I've had that race car, the electric car track, just a circuit that you buy and you basically you squeeze the trigger to make the car go. They spin around and stuff.
Mine was on a table and it had this giant thing that went on the wall as a loop, because sometimes if you didn't hold the thing down, they would just get stuck on the wall, and it would be funny to be like, "Ha, you left it on the wall," and then you try to power it up there, and
Yeah,
sometimes we get
sometimes
stuck.
they go too fast the turns and they fall off the tracks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, no, this is just because like you would have to
Yeah.
give it a lot more energy to get off the wall to get back onto the regular track.
At least it wasn't one of the rubber band tracks. I don't know if you had any toys like that, like Micro Machines thing where you
No.
like kind of pull it back, or a spring activated thing.
And this one glows in the dark. That element is kind of
yeah.
cool. I didn't see that.
I do like the glowing. Yeah, that was where it was at back in the day. Like everything had to glow in the dark.
These are
Like-
terrible toys.
Like,
It looks like they made up these two Transformers just for this racing thing.
Well, yeah, they are made up. I was it Freeze On? What's the other one's called?
Race On.
Race On.
oh wow, really?
Well, one's a car and he races, so he's Race On, and let's just make a blue one and call him Freeze On.
Go figure.
It's so weird.
Oh, Natron and Freezor. Not Freeze
what
On.
does Natron mean?
I don't know. Maybe it's Neutron and the guy said it wrong.
Sounds Japanese.
Yeah. And then there's the electronic train and battle set that you can also buy. If you guys want to watch that real quick.
The Decepticons are invading your command post. As they storm the power station, you counterattack with a new secret weapon you control. A speeding Transformers train that's more than just a train, as every car transforms into a Hawk Fighter weapon center. Proton laser. Search mode switched.
And ready for action. And in position to cut off the enemy's escape.
Your Hawk Fighter attacks with supersonic speed and saves the power station. You won today, but will you be ready tomorrow? Transformers Electric Train and Battle Set by Tyco, of course.
That's really stupid.
I was like, the train thing is kind of cool how it opens up and becomes a space shuttle with wings. I was like, okay, that transformation is kind of cool.
What I don't understand is like this is an extensive set. I mean, it comes with the train that changes to a plane and all these other accessories with it, like some kind of track.
I like all the stuff. I mean, just folding little things out and bouncing little guns, but it looks dumb. Like the whole
they make all these
thing.
Toys and put this in this box set. They're asking people to pay a bunch of money because this is a lot.
That looks like it's $400.
How is this just knockoff stuff? It has the Transformers name on it, but none of this is Transformer stuff, really, except the train. But like, why wouldn't they have like Astro Train or Starfire or something? Like, why is this all just made up knockoff stuff?
It's also licensed to Tyco, so they're probably just giving them the permission for the name, not for the Transformers name, and not the actual characters themselves.
That's weird.
Because Tyco is not actually owned by Hasbro, so they were probably just some kind of thing to keep the brand going because they didn't know how to make their own racetracks and train things and stuff like that.
I mean, did Hasbro decide to do the animation for them? Because it looks like the little Transformer cartoon that they had set up, which also it starred two made-up Transformers, which are not anywhere in this set.
That's what made me think they didn't have the license to that. But here you go, Thomas. If you want the Tyco racing set, it is $350 on eBay.
Of course.
The original price
spot on.
It would have been, because there was this Lego set that I wanted, like it's called the Lego Flight Set, and it had like this monorail track and all this stuff. It's like a whole airport, just all kinds of stuff, and that was $400 in the Sears catalog. I knew I was never getting that. I marked it as like, a Christmas thing I wanted. Like I circled it. That's what my mom would do. She'd buy things. She'd get things for me that I wanted from the Sears catalog or the JCPenney catalog. But yeah, I knew I was never getting that. It was just way too expensive.
Yeah. Oh my
different
God, Thomas,
stuff.
that was the one I had. You just shared for me the one I actually had as a child.
Okay, I was about to say, is this the one that you
That
had? 'Cause
is the one I
when you
had, 'cause
described it, I was like, I know exactly what you're
it
talking about.
it
I've seen the
had
ones that go up and
it is
like
super. It was super cliffhangers. It had a loop and a thing for the wall and all that yellow stuff in there. And I'm erasing it all the time with my sister. That was the thing I had. And oh my God, it's $369. Why would you do that? Just buy one of the newer ones. Like, just because it's old, you know what? Screw your nostalgia. I'll go buy the Sonic one I shared for you.
okay, but
Even
the
though
new
all this,
ones, the
it's a
new ones aren't going to
figure eight.
Sonic
produce
cars.
that electronic smell that you're looking for, like the old ones will.
Yeah, the burning smell.
Yep.
Burning.
You know what? I'm just gonna wake up early and go to some yard sales and see if I can find stuff like this.
Oh yeah, I would love to play with that. That looks awesome.
I mean, the only toy that I would want to play with from way back in the day that I always coveted it was the Crossfire little set, the board game or whatever. I don't even know. Is it a board game? I guess it's
Crossfire?
Yeah, I
Fire
think it's a
game.
board game.
You have a bunch of little marbles that you put and you shoot the like spinning. It's a top that's attached to a ball bearing and it spins.
Thomas, were you not
Yep.
at my place when we played that for game nights?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I haven't
I think
played.
I had it
Crossfire
out like
forever.
for a party once. Like,
Oh my god, I want to play that and have fun for like
it's in my basement. I got all
just
the
2
marbles.
minutes and then never want to think about it again.
Crossfire looks boring.
It's a terrible game. It's not fun.
It looks like
Ugh.
Hungry Hippos in reverse. Sorry.
Well, yeah, there's just marbles just flying all over the place, and then the disc thing that you shoot at will always get stuck on the sidewall and won't move. It's not a good game. Hungry Hippos, I like.
You should play Mousetrap. Now that's a good game to go
Oh
back
no,
to.
Mousetrap sucks.
Grape Escape.
All right, we got it in this episode. We've been going forever.
Maybe this will be used as a bonus feature, not 20 additional minutes of talking from us.
All right,
Yeah, we talked about a lot of off topic here.
Give us an ending, Shawn.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sparkcast. And signing out, this is Shawn.
Charlie.
And Thomas.